distributor. There was a competitor at the time. Eventually, this company no longer exists. And as soon as I said gluten-free, people were like, oh no, I don't need any. And everybody else who would try it, nobody knew that they were gluten-free. They were amazing. I announced that we are now okay. And in February, Trump came in. Oh my God, we don't know what's going to happen. We can't take any new Canadian suppliers. It's not for the faint of heart. To be an entrepreneur, you have to be resilient and persistent and
Miriam, thanks for coming on the Show Off the Scale podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to really diving deep to your story. Maybe for those who haven't heard about your story, haven't heard of Delicious Without Gluten, what made you kind of start the company as a whole initially?
My kids, actually, there's an expression like necessity is the mother of invention. So that exactly is what happened to me. I had two kids with celiac disease, and it was all very new for me. I was in a peanut-free bakery because my daughter has a peanut allergy. We tried a ton of gluten-free goods. This is many years ago. They were 5 and 6 years old. Honestly, there wasn't much on the market at the time. It was very... We would buy it, taste it. It would taste like cardboard. We'd throw it out. And it was really hard. And they already knew what great tasting bread and sweets were. So it was very difficult to transition them. So I decided to just go into the kitchen and start making things. And I discovered things and I liked the kitchen. So that's where I really was able to excel. And I had a lot of fun doing it. And then eventually I decided to open up DWG.
Amazing. And so when you had a successful bakery, was it like it was like a cold cut from bakery to DWG, or was it more of like a transition per se?
So I was in another bakery that was peanut free, right? So in this company, everything was full of gluten. Then I get the phone call that you have a kid with celiac disease. I didn't even know what that was. So it took some time to kind of understand. And then I made the first bakery for my daughter because, of course we needed this. And now I knew for sure that they weren't able to eat from my bakery. So I thought it was just not important anymore. Just sort of fell off my screen. So I didn't just jump into another one. First of all, I went through a life change. I went through a divorce. And during that time, I had a lot of time to kind of figure it out. Like I had no idea how to do any of this. So being at home and trying to figure things out gave me that, I'm an entrepreneur. It's my third business, to be honest. The first one was graphic design for 18 years, and then this other bakery. And now after a year I was out, I realized I had partners. I could sell that part and then I could start something new. And that all just didn't happen right away. It was sort of, okay, what am I going to do now? I'm alone. I have kids. I have, this issue about, gluten. What do I really want? And as soon as I understood what I wanted to do, then I said, okay, I'm going to give it a try. But at the time, really, my products were muffins and pita bread and cupcakes. My kids were 5 and 6. They went to birthday parties. I would make sure that they didn't feel excluded. So I would make everybody's birthday cakes. And then I would, start to invent different things so that my kids would feel comfortable wherever they went. And so it was a process. I started to do this in my house and got a third-party manufacturer in Ottawa. And from there, I then realized that all the fun was taken out of my life because all I was doing is marketing. And I really liked being in the kitchen and discovering. So I thought, okay, maybe I can try some more things at home. So I went and tried to figure something out for the pita bread. Maybe I can make it better. Maybe I could do this, that. And I made this bread. And when I made this bread and my kids came home and tasted it, it was like life had changed. And so I said, okay, let me see. I'm running to the stores. I'm making some stuff. I'm running to the stores and asking people to taste. And I'm, trying to get everybody freaked out. It was telling me that I was trying to push muffins and cupcakes to people, but this went smooth. So I'm a very strong-headed person. So I'm going to go and I'm going to do something as, difficult as possible and try to beat down the doors. But what I realized is you don't need to beat down any doors. When something is right, that's it. It shows you. So people were telling me, and then I realized that I had something special. And that's when I decided to build a factory. So up until then, I didn't have a place to manufacture. I was using the basement of my house. I turned it into a commercial kitchen and I started baking until I was able to get um, a facility that was just four walls. I had to figure out how to build it out, where I needed. That's when I started with certification because I realized that with certification, I would then be able to grow a business much easier, especially if I wanted to be gluten free. People wouldn't, want to just rely on my own, oh, that's great. I'm gluten free, but, can you prove it? So having a certification meant from the beginning. So I actually met with a consultant for gluten free, and they explained to me all that was necessary. So when I was looking for a construction place, like for a site, I was actually looking for specific things with drains and partitions, and there had to be a place for employees, and there had to be, there was a lot of different things. So I just really learned a lot before I actually opened and built out a space. And it was just the beginning of, trying to figure out how to get from the house to the to the factory. It's quite an experience.
It seems like, I guess, you were just trying to solve a pain point for yourself. And do you find that that's a good way for a lot of founders to go? Like, kind of, you figure out what are some of the pain points that you're going through, your family is going through, and kind of, because you understand it yourself, you understand the pain of that compared to, I guess, something that you don't understand as well.
So, what you know best is really what you should be doing. So, the fact that this hit me in my home really allowed me to stretch it out. First of all, I really care about cross contamination. I'm not trying to make some money on a gluten free. The gluten free wasn't even popular. You can't just go for what's popular. You have to go what touches you. And for me, this hit home, right? This is kids, allergies, celiac disease. You want to make sure that everything is safe for my own kids. So you go to that extent to make sure all of that with your heart, and you put yourself in that position. You don't go and look for something that is, gee, I think, pets are trending now. Let's go do something. Like it doesn't work that way. It works for what you know best, what your skills are. I loved being in the kitchen. I would do it for no money. That's how you know that that's what you want to do, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it, like a lot of time. So you got to love it. It's got to touch you. It's got to move you. And that's how you can figure out what it is that you need to do next. I've always just followed my heart. So just changing direction it's really easy, because if your life changes, I didn't always have kids with celiac, so, they had peanut allergies. So I had a peanut free bakery. So there's different things that, touch your life, and you can pivot. And it's important to know when to pivot.
On the point of pivoting, you ran a graphic design agency for so long with studios. This is one conversation that I have with founders, successful founders, where they say, like yourself, that it's like, we were maybe in a different industry before, but when we look back, it's like the skills in that industry somewhat helped us in this industry. Yeah, what were some of the sort of things that you picked, like you took from that journey and you kind of applied it to this journey per se?
So I actually studied fashion, and I was a designer. My first job in the industry, I was actually designing clothing, and I got a hold of a Apple computer. The first came out, and I started designing clothing on there. And then I said, okay, I have enough experience. I'm going to go out and get my own clients. And then I started doing fabrics and designs for other people on in my own business. Once I did that, the clothing business started getting smart and doing it everywhere. So I wasn't no longer needed. And so I pivoted at that point to more corporate accounts. And one of my biggest clients was actually developing product in China, India, anywhere for export. And I was the one who developed all the packaging for the food that was coming in. So I learned about nutrition facts and ingredient decks and packaging and all kinds of stuff. So it was kind of funny how I ended up in the food industry, because that was like into fashion, right? Nothing to do with food. But then really just turned into like, wow, I could use those skills to design my own packaging and to be able to create my logo. My original logo for my first bakery, Mimi Mellon, was done in 5 minutes. I went up to my office. I had been doing graphic design for so long. And I remember thinking, okay, this is no longer working. I really want to bake. I'm just going to start it online and I'm going to make myself a little logo and put it out there and say, I'm peanut free. If you need anything, let me know. So it was, your graphic skills can really help you. I mean, today we have a lot of AI graphic stuff, but then it was all like very new. So I was really able to make my own logos, my own trade show accessories and things. And so it really did help to brand and to understand food and what was necessary for the Canadian Food Inspection Association. So CFIA. So it was good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because it's like you can kind of see that like every experience that you had kind of led on to benefiting the next.
Stay open. Stay open. Don't stay stubborn. Stay open because life will shift and you have to shift with it.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. And then going to when you were looking for places for a factory, I mean, walk us from there to like when you got your first customer. What was that kind of path like from signing up for a factory and then actually getting your first customer?
So I had some customers. I was baking at home and I would, like I said, I would make the product and I would bag it and I would, drive it over to the, stores. And then it was, I had a lot of hats to wear. We had to get some machinery, employees, packaging, big boy stuff. It was like all new. I wasn't really sure. I mean, I was sure about how to make the product. I was sure that this was a great opportunity, but I really wasn't sure how to do most of the stuff. And that kept me going for a long time, but I wore too many hats to really branch out. I was doing a lot of television, I used to be on breakfast television and they did a segment on me and I got exposure. So it kind of was, I didn't have a distributor. It was just me. And then slowly people would hear about me and I'd be in stores. And I had a problem with distribution in my first part of my business. We didn't have a distributor at the time was a health product. While there was demand in the store, there was a competitor at the time who's no longer, who got this really big deal. And the distributor had an exclusivity. So they couldn't have any other gluten-free bread. So immediately I wasn't able to go in. And even though I had gone to Metro and she loved my stuff and she called the distributor and told them to list me and everything, they wouldn't. Eventually, this company no longer exists, but it didn't change. But happened over time was bread became a commodity. I mean, bread was super new, going from hard, tough, gross bread to very good tasting. I mean, I believe the demise of this other company was because they had tons of money behind them and marketing. But when it came down to actually eating it, it wasn't great. So having a great look and being able to manufacture and do all those other great things are amazing. But if you don't have a great product, a great tasting product, that's where it kind of hurts. So people don't come back. So you get your package is like the first thing that they see, they want to buy it, and then you get the first sale, but the repeat sale, not so much. So it was different for me. I just kept going until I finally found a niche in the food service industry. We got first of all, before COVID, we were able to get Costco. So I was first in Intermarché. I had a broker at the beginning, and he brought me to Intermarché. Now, Intermarché is a very low end supermarket, and it was very new. Gluten free was very new, so the price and the people and the market didn't work. And so I was very interested in going to a Costco, and so I decided to meet up with them. And my cupcakes were like the first product I ever made. And they were allergen free and everybody can be included. And that was exactly what I wanted. So I did that. They took an in and out and it wasn't fully automated. So it was really tough. And they didn't commit past an in and out. So I only had like a certain amount that you can do. So I didn't want to invest in the equipment right away. And so it was a bit painful. When that happened, after that happened, it was COVID. And so that whole story kind of fizzled out. And then I got into food service. Food service was I got a contract with Boston Pizza, but I also got a lot of restaurants and airlines and it didn't require that much packaging and it didn't require, free fills and it didn't require marketing and it was like an easy entry. And so I decided to go into food service and to do a little bit of marketing of retail. But honestly, it wasn't my focus anymore. It was after COVID, and now I'm just sort of hanging in there, and I'm thinking, okay, how do I grow this business? I'm in a lot of places. I'm coast to coast. Every single day was a hamburger bun or a white bread, or I need something different. So along came Wegmans from the States looking for a pretzel bite, and that was gluten free. They had some, but they wanted their own brand and they wanted something better than what they had. So I was just asked, "You want to make it?" And I thought, okay, sure. So I made it and it was nothing for me. I was like in my kitchen doing my thing, loving it, and sent it out. And they went through rigorous testing and they loved it. And so it was like, we don't even know that this is gluten free. So that is such a big change, like a lot of things are like, I think that's what was the food service was so good because when I made, let's say, a panini or a hamburger bun and it was pliable and good and customers didn't have to like look for chia and flax and see if it was healthy. They just wanted something good. And that was what my company was about. It's called Delicious Without Gluten, not try to be healthy. Healthy meaning, of course, like if you have diabetes, you shouldn't be eating sugar. So people have a sugar substitute. So if you have a craving, you don't cheat. It's the same thing for me. People who have celiac disease, they need something where they feel like they're cheating, but they're not, because otherwise they'll cheat. And that isn't good for their gut. So when I say it's not healthy, I don't mean it's not healthy. I mean, it's, not filled with flax and chia that tastes like hard rocks. And, now everything is filled with protein and filled with all the trends that are happening. But mine just is something that you could just feel like it's something like the real thing so that, you feel satisfied. And that was the most important for me because I had children who wanted that and apparently a lot of other people.
It goes back to what you mentioned about like, they'll buy once, but if the taste is not good, if they don't enjoy it, they're not going to buy it a second time. So that's kudos to the taste that you've focused on with DWG.
Yeah.
And on that point, on the food service piece, Miriam, I guess, you know, what is one misconception that you think founders in the space tend to have with food service? Because of course, everyone's trying to go after retail, and that's where the attention sometimes gets put on. But I guess what is one misconception that you feel that founders tend to have with food service?
I don't know why someone wouldn't want to go under food service. The truth is that nobody really knew it was me. But, when we get emails all the time and phone calls saying, I was at Boston Pizza and we just had the most amazing hamburger bun. Could you sell this here? Like, and I couldn't get it there because it's all the way in Vancouver. I mean, we can ship to, Quebec and Ontario, but if it takes 4 days and the bread's no longer going to be fresh. So I didn't know how to do the retail of that. And for me, food service, there's no packaging required. They don't have returns. They don't have, it's really simple. It's a really amazing way to start a business because you're not required to do, I mean, as long as they keep buying. I mean, I'm extremely lucky. They've been doing this for like 8 years or something, right? So it's a long time to have contracts in place in food service. But that food service is the bonus because retail is a difficult monster. You need the right packaging. You need to change your packaging. You need to have call outs and, all kinds of connections to retailers who require a lot of, upfront money. There's a lot of stuff in retail that's, we don't really fully know because, you don't realize what the cost of doing business is when you are in retail. So it's something that if you're going to start your business and you're not really wanting to spend all that money on, retail, try to find another way, another direction, because for me, being blocked by a distributor forced me to go another direction. I didn't mean to, but then I found out it was easier.
Well, I guess we have to thank that distributor over there then, and that brand that shut down in the end, that that led you to food service. And I guess on to go a bit further there, like I guess what is uh, let's say I'm a founder. I've been in a lot of a lot of conversations for the retail buying side with retail buyers. But I guess what are some of the criteria or some of the factors that food service buyers look at that are different from retail? I guess.
Everybody requires a certification, but more retail, it's much higher. So you will find that it's if Costco, or first of all, having it under a private label, you absolutely have to have very high certifications. You'll need a GFSI, you'll need very important certifications that will really ensure that they don't have a recall, that their name doesn't go under for that reason. So there's a very big risk when you're doing retail. In food service, if there's an issue, you can, and then I can really I can call up my supplier and tell them like to please return all the items. I know exactly where they're going. It's going to one store, pallets and pallets of that are going to one store. I can control it easier. I don't know that there is more benefits to doing food service than that. I mean, that's a big deal right there, but you have to go where your path flows you.
Definitely, definitely. And then I guess moving from there on to, if I'm not mistaken, currently you've rolled out a couple of SKUs with Unify across Canada. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So what happened? I really wanted to grow the business. And as I said, Wegmans had decided that they wanted this pretzel bite. So I created it, but they needed the certifications and had let go of my certification in COVID. Even though we kept all the policies, we didn't have a third party audit. So we had to reinstate everything. And it took about 6 months. And then in January, I think it was January 1st, I received our certification. So by the time everyone came back from holiday, I announced that we are now okay, we can start the process. And in February, Trump came in. Oh my God, we don't know what's going to happen. We can't take any new Canadian suppliers. So here I was, fully invested, new product, certifications, all ready to go, nowhere to go. So I decided that I was just going to do it for Canada under my own label. And I realized that I had let my brand kind of fall. I am in stores. It's not that I'm not in stores. I'm in health food stores, but I don't have a major brand, what do you call it, grocery store or something carrying it. So in order for me to grow my business, you need to be more up to date. You can't use packaging from 10 years ago. You have to be more, à la mode, just in fashion. You have to be out there and what's trending. So I decided to rebrand and to come out with retail SKUs. And this way I could make a grand entrance, because what I knew was that bread is a commodity and was not worth to put my money into. And finding something that doesn't exist in Canada, there are no gluten-free pretzels yet. And there are some bites that are available, nothing of value yet. So when I came out, it was very new. And I had just like everybody I had shown it to, first of all, when I was just at the show at Unify, a lot of people, I'm branding so that my packaging doesn't say gluten-free on it. It has a gluten-free logo. It's in the name somewhere. But now gluten-free is such a niche market that the sales are very small. But if the product now can attract national brands and stand up to the taste of a national brand, well, there you have something. So as people are walking by and they're tasting, oh, it's so amazing, it's great pretzels, da, 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 da. And then I'd say, and it's gluten-free. And people were floored. So what did that mean for me? I mean, it just shows you that It should stand out on its own and not just be pushed into a small little market. And that's the big change in gluten free right now. If you're only going to market yourself to a small niche, you're going to get small sales. And this time around, going retail and investing in logo and rebranding, I'm going to go big. So you have to kind of, change the way that people think. I remember one day sitting at Costco, selling my demoing, being at the demo at the Costco and having to give out the cupcakes so people would try them, right? And I remember I'd say, oh, it's gluten free, it's peanut free, allergy, da 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 da. And as soon as I said gluten free, people were like, oh no, I don't need any. And everybody else who would try it, nobody knew that they were gluten free. They were amazing. But all of a sudden now, because I said gluten free, it's like, oh no, we don't need that stuff. So you see, it could really change or make or break, right? How you market something.
Yeah, definitely. So is the goal just a full kind of, a full national rollout and make it a nationally recognized brand, basically? Is that kind of the next goal?
Absolutely. So the pretzels was the way in because everyone wanted a piece of this, you know? It was sort of like new. I had a lot of brokers approach me. I had a lot of interest from retailers, just people who like didn't even, care about gluten free or walk around and start eating and whatever. So I think that this was the start. But as soon as the brand gets recognized, I will start adding in those other few of those SKUs like the Boston pizza, hamburger buns and, some Montreal style bagels and maybe a few other things. So it will brand itself and I'll be rolling it over into that new company, right? That's going to be known as this amazing tasting company that's not just focused on gluten free.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, there was a lot of brokers that did approach you. A great point to kind of segue from there is that I guess I guess two questions over here. One is that when do you think is the right time to bring on a broker for a brand normally? And the second point is that once you've decided to bring one on, how do you actually pick the right one, basically?
Good
Yeah.
question. So, first of all, I'm a one man show, right? Like I have staff, but I don't have partners. And I'm a little bit like I'm, doing everything. So, you can't expect one person to do everything well. And I don't know if you know retail, but it requires a lot of connections and a lot of skills, a lot of paperwork. And I was originally approached by Brand Seed Marketing, which was founded by Jim Kavanagh. And he and I met in 2016 and we've kept in contact on LinkedIn. And he was just an amazing person, really a people person, and seemed to really care, which, when I make a decision is a lot with my gut. And it felt really good. But he also has a most amazing team in back of him who have connections, who are all in the industry and who know how to set up. And I was so excited to be part of this team because they have such skills that I could never do. I think you have to evaluate what your strengths are. And knowing that my strengths are in the production and the branding part that I have history with from my design years, I think that, when you're not so good at something, you should give that away. It's worth it. And there are going to be people who want things from you. And the way in which they approach you make all the difference in the world. When they are not just looking because they need something from you, they can show you what value they're giving you. And that they care about you and they understand you're a small business and they understand what your concerns are. That's how you pick them. It's so important to know who you get into business with, right? You don't want to have surprises and you want someone to feel how you're feeling, to understand that. And the fact that they have brought a lot of small companies big. So, they have a track record. You have to see who they actually list, right? And people who don't have competitors in those. I have approached people over the years who weren't interested and now are interested because I have the right product, right? So sometimes it's the person, right? The person who sees past those things and who can evaluate and see who you really are. We tend to make a lot of decisions with our brain, right? Because our brain tells us from all the learning that we do. But if it doesn't feel right, you're in the wrong place. And sometimes people discard that. They think, oh, like it's a man's world, right? Like you shouldn't be doing that. We should be like really, just using our heads. And, I wanted to play with the big boys and, show how smart I was and how, like I was playing with the boys. But I think at the end, you have to also bring the other side of you into the equation because there's a lot of good there. And people don't want to acknowledge that when they're thinking business, business, business. It's got to be a business, hard decision. We make decisions because da da da. And sometimes you have to also do ethical things. You have to, think about how it affects your life and what it means to you. So it's not so black and white.
Yeah, would you say I guess it's more of like just being more intuitive, kind of understanding that voice in your head? Because it happens when you're in a business meeting with someone, you're like, I just and I would say I would like to be more intuitive, but I'm maybe not. Sometimes I block myself. But sometimes you're just sitting there and you're like, I don't know, there's something off about this person or this conversation. Like,
The word intuitive probably would scare a lot of people and think it's a little too woo-woo. So let's stay away from that word. When it feels right, you know it, right? There's a reason why things work and why they don't work, and when the doors open and when they don't, and when you're fighting to get something in and when it comes in easily. You have to see it. You have to feel it. You have to understand. Listen, if you're going to push something, like I said before, it may not work. You can put a square into a circle. It may not work. You can do it, but if it doesn't really fit, you got to see. So you got to listen to that. You have to see how you feel. And if it's like, wow, this is amazing, it checks all my boxes and does this, and that person really has this thing that I really think they understand me and they get it. This, you're going to walk away, you're going to feel great. If you're going to get the ick, for sure, it ain't gonna work. You can bring it to dating, you could bring it to friendships, you can bring it to business. It's all the same.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's a very, 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 very good point. Yeah, and I hope that all of us can kind of listen a bit more to our hearts, and of course listen to your brain, but also listen to your heart as well a bit for sure.
Bit of this, bit of that.
Get it, bit that bit. Exactly, exactly. Maybe one question I always like to ask, because entrepreneurship is not an easy game, especially when you're in the industry that we're in, the food CPG industry. It's not exactly the easiest. Maybe over the past 13 years, has there been a moment where you've come close to just kind of walking away from all this, but still kind of chugged along?
So the possibility of closing, it's just not a possibility. So for me, investing my entire life into this company, there's no way until I am where I want to be will I even consider. However, there's been a ton of moments I can think of that have brought me to like, why am I doing this? And you have the moments of, cash flow moments where you think you're never going to make it. And you have the moments of, being alone. I remember the night of Costco, we were closing up for Christmas Eve. It was Christmas Eve. I had a lot of stuff and we had to finish up before this day. And I'm Jewish, so I really didn't care if I was late to go home. But I was left with so much to clean and do. Everyone just kind of checked out. And I was left with everything. And I was absolutely like in tears because I had an entire production filled with dirt. The place was going to be closed for a week. I couldn't leave it like that. And I was all alone. And I was exhausted. I was exhausted from so many piping and doing, and I was just dead. I had closed up that night. And I just, and I did. I remember I had a really difficult time. And I went back home, and it's the night that a television episode about my company came on. I had no idea. And it was Miriam's going to Costco, DWG, and I just turned the TV on before going to bed and plopping in it was 11 o'clock, I think the 11 o'clock news. And it's just like, my God. Okay, it's all good. So just when you think you're like at the bottom and exhausted and you can't do anymore, and then this little gift comes. Crazy. But there are moments where you just think, I'm going to give up. I'm so tired. I'm tired of working. I'm tired of employees. I'm tired of things that happen that you have no control over. Things happen. It's not for the faint of heart. To be an entrepreneur, you have to be resilient and persistent and persevere. Like there's no wishy-washy here. You really have to overlook all that and have a mindset that you're going. There is no stopping because there's no opportunity. If you stop, you're going to fall, right?
100%. And I mean, a great example in this podcast itself is that, 8 out of 10 people, when the distributor told them no, would have maybe given up or would have not been able to figure it out. But you were still able to be like, well, let's go food service and let's double down on that. And then once you've kind of exhausted that, you're like, now we're ready for, retail again with a different SKU. So that shows your resilience, Miriam, your perseverance, ability to innovate constantly. So yeah, kudos to you.
It's very important to be able to shift, like we talked about, like when to pivot.
Definitely. And Miriam, this is great. One last question I like to always ask at the end is that what do you wish that someone would have told you on day one of starting DWG that would have benefited you a lot today?
So you had mentioned scaling and different things and what I wish I knew, but at the time there wasn't equipment for gluten-free. That there was a lot that wasn't known that would really help me today. But there is one piece of advice that I would say that I thought of. It's really when you're a small company, you think to yourself, oh, well, I'll just get myself an accountant and, I can't afford like the big time. I'm going to get this small town accountant and they're going to set me up. And when things change, I'll change and do that. And over time, with different bookkeepers and accountants and all that stuff, books were never really well kept in the way that I needed to retrieve data from history. And so I also wasn't able to make proper decisions with real numbers. And so I would say that getting a very good accountant, somebody who understands business, invest your money in that because how you build yourself on QuickBooks or wherever you're going to work is really, and to understand how that's really done should be a priority as your business grows. And let's be serious here. I mean, you don't go into business and think, oh, we're just going to stay small. It's going to be okay. You think it's going to go big, right? You need to set yourself up when you're small and then use the accountant's advice. Like I am a creative person. I am not a numbers person. Obviously, I'm an entrepreneur. I would take risks much more than an accountant who is much more, conservative. But they will have numbers for you. They will set you up properly. And in my head, I was always thinking, that's for later. No, that should be the first thing that you do. And if I could have changed something, that's what I would have changed because that information had always kind of made me had to reevaluate at every step because I had to feel my way through as the data was never really all there, you
That's
know?
a really good point, especially in our industry where like there's the margins are not crazy, but at the same time, there's so many cost inputs that are there. So you really need someone to kind of give you the right data, as you mentioned, to make the right decisions.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
It's all about the profit at the end, right? And making money. And that's the bottom line. So you can have great tasting food and you can have great distributors and you can have great people beside you. But numbers are really important and should not be thrown in that. We'll get a better one later.
Exactly. Exactly. No, Miriam, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on. A lot of good lessons from this episode. So again, huge thank you from our end. And yeah, looking
And
forward to this going out.
thanks so much.
Perfect.